Welcome to the Bartow Ford Real Animals Radio Show, your weekly voyage into Florida fishing. Presented by Hubbard's Marina, hosted by Captain Mike Anderson and Captain Dylan Hubbard.
Good morning, Tampa Bay. Captain Dylan Hubbard here from the Bartow Ford Real Animals Radio Show. We are live this morning, talking fishing, hanging out, and hopefully hearing from you as well. Got Captain Travis Thompson in studio this morning from all Florida, and we are going to be talking all things inshore, near shore, and even a little inland fishing with Travis here in studio. So exciting morning on this I guess it's a pretty calm morning for now, but won't stay that way for very long, huh?
Never does. Never does.
Yeah, it looks a little nautical here later today. It's definitely going to be picking up and be a little wet and rainy for the afternoon, and then get a little bit breezy overnight, and looks a little chilly and cold there in the end of the day tomorrow and into Monday. Going to be calming down slowly, and looks like a pretty good work week. We're going to be working up to that full moon. We're on a first quarter moon right now. It was a first quarter moon yesterday, and a week from yesterday it'll be a full moon. So coming up on that full moon. So behind this weather, kind of early to mid work week into almost late work week, is going to be your weather window. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, essentially. And I would say the best day to be fishing is going to be towards the end of that work week. Wednesday, Thursday. Specifically, I would say Thursday based on current forecast, because you're going to be on the front side of that full moon. You're going to be on the back side of the weather that's coming here today and tomorrow, and you're going to be on the front side of that weather coming next weekend. So we're falling into that frontal kind of pattern where the fronts are starting to spread out a little bit, which is good news. Unfortunately, the timing is rough because they're falling on weekends.
Yeah. Why is it that they always do that?
People say that, but I find that it kind of it changes from year to year.
It does, but it just seems like more often than not.
Yeah.
Or maybe it's because, like,
it hurts more. It hurts more when they're on weekends.
And maybe the average guy, like, you know, like me, like the average guy, like, you look at it and you're like, oh, man, like, I'm going to go fishing next weekend or 2 weeks out or whatever. And then a front hits on a Friday and you're like, oh, that ruins the weekend. Or, like, sometimes I guess maybe you just kind of lump it all together. Yeah,
I don't know. I mean, for me, I've always looked at it and like, oh, fronts on a weekend, it doesn't matter as much because, we can fish during the week. But in reality, it affects business, it affects recreational fishing, it affects everybody.
Oh, huge.
Significantly.
Huge.
And I hate fronts on the weekend now more than anybody, trust me. And it's been rough. I mean, from a business perspective, a private recreational perspective, it doesn't matter. I mean, December and January were historically rough.
Yeah. Like I was running duck hunts in December, and there were some weekends where I was like, we don't typically cancel a duck hunt because of weather.
Yeah.
Like you can duck hunt in anything. And in most of our cases, we're not on boats. We're going into pastures and stuff. We had to cancel some. We allowed hunters to cancel hunts.
Wow.
And we almost never do that because the weather was so bad on some of those weekends. It was bad.
Yeah.
It was bad.
It's been a really rough winter, but we're looking ahead. And as I said, those fronts are starting to get a little bit further apart. This coming week, we've got almost 3 days of pretty nice weather between the fronts. And that's good news because it has only been 1 or 2 days or sometimes even like 12 hours. So I'm excited. We're getting a little bit more spacing, and that should only increase slowly as we move through February. And apparently that shift from El Nino to La Nina is supposed to be coming, which will help a lot as well. So things are looking up weather-wise. That's the positive silver lining this morning.
In the shift, do you see, I think it's in El Nino years, you get the more pronounced west wind?
Yes, and then also in La Nina is when you have a little bit more of a chance for hurricanes, right? The El Nino kind of suppresses hurricane chances in tropical systems. So it's kind of a double-edged sword. We're hoping to go back to La Nina to end this crazy weather pattern that we've been in. But then also on the flip side is we're switching back to La Nina right before hurricane season, which is great.
Gotcha. I remember when I used to fish tarpon, I kind of charted out and talked to some scientists that even said you could you could almost on a El Nino pattern, if you were in an El Nino pattern, like for us, I'm in a smaller boat. Beach fishing for tarpon got real rough because you'd always have that west wind, so you didn't get your land breeze, sea breeze kind of cycle. And so, trying to cruise the beach and find fish, you could sight fish. More days than not, it was lousy conditions. I'm not saying you couldn't do it. It was just lousy conditions for like a client to be up there on the bow.
It makes it difficult, that's for sure. And also that pronounced west wind in the summertime, you get a lot more of that potential for some of that red tide or
because it gets blown on shore. And so, then you get any kind of rain event or anything else on top of that. You're dumping nutrients in, feeding a something that's waiting for it, basically. Yeah.
I mean, again, red tide is something that naturally occurs in the Gulf, and that west wind will blow a lot more of it into shore. So basically all you need is the ingredients of the presence of the algae and a little bit of nutrients and the right water salinity levels, and those three things add together for a bad event. So getting away from that west wind pattern this summer, this spring and summer will be a good
huge
thing.
win.
Yeah. This weather update was brought to you by our friends over there at Reese Windows and Doors. They are Florida's leading window and door company with over 50 years in business. They offer free installation on most windows and doors, and they install in just 6 weeks. They only use in-house installers, no freelance contractors, and their work comes with a double lifetime warranty, which means you never pay for a warranty when you sell your house, and the warranty transfers to the new owners, which adds value to your home. Visit Reese Windows and Doors for more info, reesewindows.com. Definitely good news on the weather front, and excited because fishing's been going really well for us, and it seems like that spring fishery is right around the corner.
What have you guys been seeing the most of? I mean, I haven't been fishing. I've been hunting, and now I just got done hunting. So
you got to take a break for a second.
I slept in for a weekend, and now I'm back.
Wow, that must be nice.
It was nice.
It's good to have you back. I mean, I don't think you've answered your phone for like 6 months.
I didn't. I was getting back to text messages like a month later.
Yeah, I understand how you feel.
So what's hot right now? Like I'm seeing a lot of pictures of grouper. I'm seeing a lot of sheep's head stuff inshore. Yeah.
I mean, right now, sheep's head's crazy inshore, trout, and a few of those redfish. Still a lot of triple tail around, seeing some of the pompano, the flounder are starting to come back in. But really for us at Hubbard's Marina, we're really focused on the hogfish. The hogfish bite has been incredible. And it's all about those weather windows and timing it right, because it's not that you need clear water, but the post cold front chocolate milk sand colored water is not great. So yesterday was that day. I mean, it was absolutely beautiful out there, and everybody with a boat seemingly ran out there. It was funny because we had that front early in the week, and it kind of messed up weather there Monday, Tuesday. Our first day of fishing was Wednesday. We could make it out there in a bigger boat. It was still a little bumpy, but we made it out there. But fishing wasn't great because it was right behind the front. The barometer hadn't stabilized yet. The water hadn't had a chance to kind of clear up. It had calmed down a little bit, but hadn't cleared up. So the bite was tough. It was bumpy. We didn't do that well. Thursday, it had given us a little bit more time. That water had calmed down and started to clear up, but it was still a little chilly. So Thursday morning was a little slow to start. But then as soon as the sun came up, things started to stabilize. The bite went crazy. Thursday afternoon was awesome. The 10-hour Thursday had no hogfish on the boat at 12:30. We stopped fishing around 2:30, 3 o'clock. So almost past the halfway point in the trip, not a single hogfish on the boat. They ended the trip with more than 20 keeper hogs.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah, more than 60 lanes, more than a dozen mangroves. They even had to keep a red grouper. It was just an incredible afternoon. Second half of the day, things really picked up. And then yesterday, Friday, gorgeous weather, flat calm, and the fishing was really, really, really hot. And everybody and their brother was able to get out there. So the half day went out yesterday morning, left the dock early, got out there, got anchored up, and doing well. And then all of a sudden, the fleet came out there, and now they've got 25 boats around them, and it was pretty funny, comical.
Do hogfish move depths? like I know some fish kind of like move in and out depth wise. Do they tend to stay at the same depth, or do they?
They're in the same depth range. The thing about hogfish that I think doesn't get talked about a lot is the fact that they are in a really wide depth range. Their spatial distribution is pretty vast. I mean, you can catch a hogfish in 20, 30, 40 foot, and you can catch a hogfish in 140 foot. But you don't really catch as many hook and line past about 60 to 70 foot, because once you start to get to that threshold, to me, there's too many other more aggressive fish around. Whereas in the shallower waters, there's some grunts, there's some gray snapper, not grunts. There's some porgies, there's some other fish around that might take your bait, but you can kind of sit on a spot and fish it out and get those fish kind of out of the way, and then the hogfish will start biting. Whereas if you work deeper, there's just so many other more aggressive species, and it's really hard to hook and line them. But the spear fishermen, they're going to go out there and commercially spearfish huge hogfish out in deeper water, 100, 120, 140, even 160 foot of water, some really big hogs. So you can get hogfish deeper, but generally the average hook and line fisherman is going to target that 40 to 70 foot. And I wouldn't say they move depths. What I think mostly happens, and what we've kind of figured out over time, is once the water starts to get a little bit warmer, they don't stay concentrated on the ledges.
They distribute a little bit.
Yeah, they kind of go out into the sand bottom, the more shell bottom. I mean, right now in the cooler months, they stay close to that smaller structure. That 1 to 3 foot ledge is kind of what you're looking for, those smaller potholes, those little cracks. The big ledges are tough because there's just so many other fish around them, more aggressive fish. It's hard to target a hogfish on a 4 foot ledge because there's just too many other fish around. So the smaller peaks is what you're looking for, but then they kind of stay off the side of that hard bottom, right? They're not right on the ledge. You want to kind of fish off to the side of it. But then once it starts to warm up, they really spread out, and they're just not as concentrated. The cold fronts concentrate those fish around the structure, and I think that's what makes it easier to target hogfish in hook and line in the cooler months. I don't know. That's what we found over
Everything I need. I just learned everything I know about hogfish.
Well, we've got more on the other side. Plus, hopefully, we're going to hear from you as well. Give us a shout, 1-800-969-9352. If you have a fishing report, fishing question, or if you just want to say hi, give us a call. We'd love to hear from you. Real Animals Radio will be right back.
I have very limited hogfish experience in my life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hogfish are cool fish. The thing about hogfish that people don't realize is it's not a snapper. It's a wrasse. So it's a totally different, unique species.
Really? I didn't know that.
Yeah. And that's what really delineates their behavior and the way they feed. It's the only species of wrasse that we target.
Yeah, most of them are little, reef type fish.
Mm-hmm.
Parrotfish is a wrasse, I think.
Yep. Yeah, so it's it doesn't behave like a snapper. It's not as aggressive as a snapper. So because of that, you have to fish for them differently. Morning, Big O. Morning, Laura. Morning, Chris Myers. How you doing, buddy? Donald Waberman, William Keene. Morning, Ron. Morning, Leon. Morning, Dan, Bonnie, Robert, Sharon, Jim. Snowing in Pennsylvania.
Oof. No thanks.
After going to Colorado and experiencing snow, that stuff is real, dude. I don't know how people do it. Living in somewhere like that snows all the time. That's a
as a Floridian,
level.
It's neat to,
It's cool
to
to
see
visit.
for a minute.
Yeah.
Then it's okay, now what?
You have to prepare yourself to go outside.
Yeah.
If it snows, you have to prepare the night before. You got to put your car in a certain spot. It was a process.
Yeah.
You got to plug your truck in.
Did you have an electric truck?
No, we had a diesel, an older diesel that had the block heater. So like,
Oh.
if you forgot to plug it in, you were screwed. Like, you weren't starting that thing. Morning, Chris Brown, Angel. Angel will talk about the gag grouper stuff today.
Did you guys ski? Is that what you were doing?
Yeah, we skied, we snowmobiled.
Did you fly fish for trout?
Did not. Everything was frozen.
You can't do it. Like, it's, I guess in the winter you don't do it.
From what I heard, no. But my brother-in-law, who we were staying with, is just getting into trout fishing and all that stuff up there. He did some fly fishing in the summer. It's big in the summer in Colorado.
Oh, huge.
But
they actually have
in the
fishing
winter.
seasons. Like we have hunting seasons. They have like seasons in some of those states where like
I know
you're
like,
not
in the
allowed
winter,
to fish until like March 3rd or whatever.
It might be the case. They're super crazy there.
Yeah, I don't know about Colorado.
But I know like it was considered super dangerous to get anywhere near the river. 'Cause
Really?
The Rio Grande is running at like 4 knots, 6 knots. And so if you get close to it and you fall through some of that thin ice, you go into a river that's still moving and you get sucked
They
under
find
sheets
you
of ice.
your body 3
in
days
Mexico.
later, and yeah,
Yeah.
different country.
Yeah, nuts. So like no one gets near the river. That was a big thing that they kept talking about.
Huh.
Yeah, it was pretty interesting.
Most of the country, like the winter is their wet time of year.
Yeah, like
For us, it's not.
yeah.
This year it has been, but
And they said that's what he was saying is like most people in that area make all their money in spring and summer, and then in the winter they just kind of chill or ski or take advantage of winter sports. They're like retired half the year, so it's pretty interesting.
Is that us?
Yeah. No Captain Mike this morning. He's caught up at the Miami Boat Show, but you've got myself and Captain Travis Thompson from All Florida in studio this morning talking fishing. We're going to talk a little bit about the Miami Boat Show. We're going to talk about gag grouper numbers that got reevaluated. We've got some Lake O discharges to talk about. We've got a little bit about the right to hunt and fish that's coming up on the ballot November 5th that we want to talk about as well. And hopefully we're going to hear from you as well. Give us a shout, 1-800-969-9352 if you want to join the conversation. If you have a question, comment, or just want to say hello, you can always give us a shout. Again, 1-800-969-9352. Speaking of callers, we do have a caller on the line. We've got Captain Gene Hammond from Reeling Freedom calling in this morning. And if I can figure out which mouse to use, well, there it is. What's going on, Captain Gene? How are you, buddy?
Morning, Captain Gene.
Are you there? Captain Gene Hammond, are you on the line? Looks like we lost him.
What do you think he was going to say?
I don't know. It's probably something about Reeling Freedom. They probably are doing something cool over there at Reeling Freedom.
They're always doing something cool.
Yeah, but it seems like we lost him. He'll call back, and we'll hear from him. And hopefully we'll hear from you, too. Again, 1-800-969-9352 if you want to join the conversation. It looks like he popped back in. So let's see. Captain Gene, you there, buddy? Nope. We lost him.
0 for 2.
0 for 2. You know, third time's a charm.
Yeah.
You
maybe.
never know.
Maybe.
It might be one of those mornings. Maybe we're having one of those mornings. But I know Derek on the other side of the glass, Derek Dubose, always makes us sound great. And we'll get to the bottom of this on break. So I'm sure we'll hear from Captain Gene Hammond and the rest of you guys here shortly. But for now, right to hunt and fish. We've got a new amendment coming up on the ballot, right?
Yeah, right to hunt and fish is going to be on the ballot November 5th this year.
Mm-hmm.
If it passed, it would give Floridians the constitutional right to hunt and fish.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't know what that means.
I was confused by this too. So I definitely want to bring it up early in the show and talk about it a little bit throughout the show because it's exciting. And to me, when I heard it the first time, I'm like, right to hunt and fish. I mean, don't we already have that right? and then also on top of that, I'm like, what's the big need for that? It seems like we're already doing okay, right? And it's been really eye-opening to me to be a little bit involved in the process, not as much as you are, obviously, Travis, but the number of people in opposition and the staunch opposition and the all-out attack, really, you could say, against this has been really eye-opening and kind of scary.
And some people are like, do we really need that?
Yes.
And I say, if you wait until you think you really need it, if you look at a state like Washington or Oregon or even into Colorado, California, some of those states, if you wait until you think you need it, it's probably too late to get it passed.
Yeah.
Because politically, you've had such a shift in the mindset around hunting and fishing. In Florida's case, yeah, we still have a pretty pro-hunting and fishing mindset here. However, we see erosions all the time. We see attacks all the time.
Yeah.
That's going to continue to increase. Ensconcing this in the Constitution ensures that we don't have to, when that time comes, we have some ground to stand on, some precedent to stand on. So it's exceedingly important that we get that done. We don't want to look like Oregon. We don't want to look like Washington State.
Yeah.
And we've seen attacks on it. I mean, even there's a coalition out there working against it right now.
Yeah, and again, I wasn't really aware of the depth of the opposition against hunting and fishing until I started getting involved in this. I mean, most recently I did an interview with Fox 13, and I just did the interview thinking nothing of it, and the reporter was like, all right, cool, and then he left, and then I saw it air. And when he aired it, the reporter had talked to me, but then went and talked to two other people who were vehemently opposed for the opposition or the right to hunt and fish.
Yep.
And I was very astounded by that there is such an outcry against the right to hunt and fish.
If you look, some proponents or some opponents will say it's already protected in the state of Florida. We have a law. What we have is a statute, 379, and it's basically the legislature saying we recognize that Floridians have the right to hunt and fish. If next year the legislature were to change its makeup, or 5 years from now the legislature were to change its makeup, they could very easily vote that out. It's not something that is voter driven. It is something that is elected official driven. So it gets really dicey there.
But this amendment coming up November 5th on the ballot, it's Amendment 2, right?
I think it's going to be Amendment 2.
And if you vote yes to the right to hunt and fish, this would be essentially enshrined in our Florida Constitution.
Which becomes very difficult to change then. To change it, you'd either have to do what we did, get the legislature to pass a resolution to go on a ballot to amend it, or you'd have to get a bajillion signatures, which is really a difficult barrier to overcome. So it's very tough to do.
And a lot of people, like I was talking to someone about this, and they were like, well, that kind of limits the ability to regulate something. Like if something happens and we want to try to close a species, in reality, you can't regulate something that you don't have the right to hunt and fish, right?
Correct. You're not. It's not going to impact FWC's regulation ability or the Fed's regulation ability. But what it does do is actually give us some protections on their side. And you can look into North Carolina. They've used the right to hunt and fish to actually push back on gill nets in their state because they said, hey, there's so much gill netting happening here that we don't have enough fish to catch. And because we have this right, you have to ensure that there are enough fish for us to catch. So the right can't just exist and you say, oh, you've got a right to hunt deer and then we eradicate all the deer. Or you can't say we have a right to catch fish, you take all the fish out of Tampa Bay.
So our right to hunt and fish makes them protect the species and makes them conserve the fishery.
It's exactly right.
Interesting. Well,
huge deal.
A lot more to talk about, and definitely going to be bringing that up as well. You can give us a shout, 1-800-969-9352. Real Animals Radio. We'll be right back. I think something's up with our call screen.
Are they not coming in?
No, Ron from Ron's Tackle Box just came in and then popped off. So I don't know if Derek's telling him that he can't connect them or what. Or if he's working on it. Is it broke? Yes. Dang it.
So I'll send them to your Facebook chat.
All right, no worries.
No callers.
Dang it. All good, man. Part of it.
Nothing you can do about it.
Yeah. At least we have a good guest this morning. Lots of chatting.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I talk.
fresh off of work trip, vacation, pleasure.
Yep. All part of it.
Yes, sir.
What happened, do you think? Just
Well,
some-
actually, it looks like I just went through some emails. It looks like it's been an issue since like 2 days ago.
Oh, nice. Oh, so
The
you're
last
fresh.
email says that it was fixed, which is on a Friday.
Yeah. Friday
Get out the
afternoon.
door on Friday. Hey, I fixed that. Y'all let me know if you have any problems.
We'll look at it Monday.
Yeah.
It's a
I'm
Monday
sure it's
problem.
fixed.
Anything after 12:30 on a Friday becomes a Monday problem.
Dang it.
So yeah, basically we're the first to test out their
Mm-hmm.
fix.
Their
fixes.
solution.
Yeah.
I hear you. Thanks, man. So we gotta watch the Facebook chat closer.
Because they'll be writing their stuff in there.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Where is it? Real Animals, Dylan Hubbard, and Hubbard's? Is that the three places?
Real Animals, Dylan Hubbard, and Hubbard's Marina.
That's what I had. I couldn't remember. Oh, Captain Gene's in there.
Yep. Warrior Shootout is what he was talking about,
Yeah, we need to talk about that.
for sure.
Reelingfreedom.com.
.org.
.org.
Warrior Shootout 2024.
Did you find it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Saturday, March 9th. Bay Pines, Marina.
This is Doug Gottlieb. Here's what's trending from the iHeart Sports Network.
Presented by Staples Stores.
All right, we got it, Gene. Gonna chase redfish before the rain. I'll pull up the radar again.
Dang, Gene's like, I can't get through. Here's the info. I'm headed out.
You guys take care of my light work.
Yeah,
I'm going fishing.
you boys got it. I'm gonna head on out and hammer some redfish real quick before it rains. I bet the redfish go off in front of this front.
I bet. Redfish are one of those species that are very, very kind of freshwater tolerant or
Yep.
freshwater sensitive. So a little bit of rain coming, they're gonna get excited. It's already raining. It looks like.
Is it?
Some parts, yeah.
Dang. It's coming too.
It is.
See, like if it was still duck season, I'd be all excited about this.
Yeah, because you get a lot of rain.
Well, and
moving a
you
lot
get
of ducks.
birds moving in front of those fronts. You get birds that move around in front of them.
Can't you still hunt geese right now? Or is that like
Snow geese, yeah, you can go hunt them in other states.
They
not
don't
in
come
Florida.
here.
Yeah, well,
Because a bunch of the charter captains in our golf charter group were saying, "Oh, like I'm going to hunt geese this weekend."
yeah. There's actually it's called a conservation season because of snow geese. There's too many of them. They actually need hunters to manage the number of snow geese.
Like cormorants?
There's too many. Like snow geese actually are destroying.
That was a joke.
They're actually destroying the tundra where they like nest.
Uh-huh.
There's so many of them that there's not enough food to sustain them.
Huh.
Like they've grown the population to like the carrying capacity of the world.
Like manatees?
Uh-huh. Why are you trying to get me in trouble, man? He's like, hey, let's talk discharges and manatees. But yeah, you ever see like hog rooting? Snow
Yeah.
geese will land in an area in the tundra, and like they eat like lichens and whatever grows up there,
Mm-hmm.
and that's where they nest. It'll look like you went through there with just a bajillion hogs. Like they
Wow.
completely just destroy it.
That's crazy.
Yeah, it's just exposed dirt or clay or whatever the soil is there.
That's crazy.
It's insane. So in snow goose season, like the short period of time, there's no limits. There's no restrictions on how many shells can be in your gun.
So it's like dove hunting in Chile.
Yeah, it's exactly right. Except the doves are 5 pounds.
Wow.
I mean, it's not uncommon to go on one of those and you kill 100, 150 in a day.
And are they good eating?
They're decent eating. Most people turn them into like jerky or something to that effect, sausage.
That's a lot of sausage.
I like to eat them. I think they're good to eat. But I like to eat wild game.
So you can get those in the South, like I know New Orleans, Alabama, that area?
Yeah, and we'll see some snow geese into Florida. We don't have to my knowledge, we don't have a conservation season. It's like a conservation order. Like it's issued every year by the feds. But like Texas, Louisiana, Arkansas, Missouri, there's like the Mississippi Flyway area. But we'll get a few snow geese killed in Florida every year during duck season. But during the main season, you only kill 3.
You're allowed 3 per person per
Yeah,
day.
but like this year I saw 2 snow geese all duck season. It's not like they're very common to see.
Crazy.
Yeah.
Learn something new every day.
And you can't hunt them in like certain, they're called light geese because of their color. You can't hunt them like at Merritt Island. Like the National Wildlife Refuges.
Yeah.
You can't kill light geese there. See, it's really, you got to be right spot, right time.
Right spot, right time.
Like everything else.
What?
Like everything else.
Yeah. We're back, Real Animals Radio on this early Saturday morning before the rain. And unfortunately, hate to disappoint you, the phones are down today, so no ability to call in, unfortunately. But
We got you covered.
That means you get to listen to this awesome conversation between Travis and I this morning. And Captain Gene Hammond tried to call in a little bit ago to talk to us a little bit about the Warrior Shootout. So if you're trying to call in, you can't get to us, you can join us on the live stream on the Real Animals or Hubbard's Marina or Captain Dylan Hubbard Facebook pages. And bring your comments, questions, whatever to the live stream, and we'll answer them there. So we can still chat through Facebook live stream. And Captain Gene Hammond wanted to talk to us a little bit about the Reeling Freedom Foundation's Warrior Shootout 2024. That's coming up. It's an inshore fishing tournament. The captain's meeting is coming up on March 9th at Bay Pines Marina, the Tiki Hut over there at Harbor Lights Drive. So definitely check out reelingfreedom.org for the Warrior Shootout 2024 information. It's a boat and kayak tournament. So you can fish it on a boat, you can fish it in a kayak. It's an inshore tournament, and it's always really, really cool. Plus, they got a great location. That Bay Pines Marina over there is gorgeous. They got great food.
Got a deal for entering your kids. I'm reading this like as scrolling, and it's pretty cool. They've got snook, redfish, ladyfish, jacks of any kind, mangrove snapper, sea trout, 1 fish per species, total inches. Like, looks like a fun tournament.
Yeah, man. And it's cool that it's boat and kayak. A little bit of everything.
Looks like a really good tournament.
Available for everybody.
And for a really good cause.
Yeah. Huge good cause. The Reeling Freedom Foundation, they're really good people. They do a lot of good stuff for the veterans. So definitely check out Warrior Shootout 2024. You don't want to miss out. Plus, we've got some other events coming up. Again, March 21st is the 6a-8a Tampa event. The banquet for Hillsborough County is March 21st from 6 to 10 p.m. at Higgins Hall. There's still some opportunity to grab your tickets for that. Plus, again, March 26th, you could join Captain Mike Anderson and Captain Lisa Fitzgerald over at Bartow Ford from 6 to 8 p.m. That's March 26th. They're going to be talking all about fishing and a chance to listen to the Hall of Famer herself, Lisa Fitzgerald.
Only angler in the Florida Sports Hall of Fame is Lisa Fitzgerald.
Yep.
Like, talk about a legend.
Lady legend angler. Definitely going to be a great event. Plus, at Bartow Ford, you got a chance to win some Bull Bay rods. You got a chance to enjoy some free Silver Ring Cafe food, which is amazing in and of itself.
Fire.
I mean, don't get me started on the double
fire.
crab. You went out there and tried it, right?
Oh, yeah.
It's good. It's worth the drive.
So good, man.
Plus, you got free Bull Bay rods, Real Animals swag, and a chance to win some Ingle coolers as well. So lots of good free stuff to win at Bartow Ford. Again, that's March 26th from 6 to 8 p.m. Make sure you mark your calendar for that as well. So lots of cool events coming up. And we've got the right to hunt and fish to talk about some more. We talked about it a little bit earlier in the show. Basically, coming up on the ballot And we don't know that it's going to be Amendment 2. It could change.
I think it's going to be Amendment 2. I think we know that. I think there's another amendment they're waiting on a constitutional ruling on or something. I honestly don't follow stuff that's not really in the conservation, hunting, fishing space.
Yeah.
So I'm not positive, but I think it'll be Amendment 2. We'll know that when the ballots do finally come out. But
And I know, like, recently we had that one thing about land use, and we talked a lot about that, and it was on the ballot, but it was really confusing kind of how it came about on the ballot. The wording on this, that's what Joe Simons from Salt Strong and I were talking about, is like, how is this, do we know how it's going to be wording? Do we get a chance to write the wording?
yeah, and selfish plug here, if you go to allfla.org/R2FH, right to hunt and fish, R2FH. We've got a bunch of talking points out there. We've actually got the copy of the amendment, and we've got the copy of the language that will be on the ballot. They're very similar.
So the language that's going to be on the ballot is already out there.
Oh, it's out there. Yeah, that had to be voted on to get it. Because anytime you put something on the ballot, it has to get Supreme Court approval to make sure that it's an enforceable law. You can't just go say, hey, I want to put people that like the color purple in jail. Like, you can't do stuff like that. It has to go through like a judicial review. So in this case, this went through judicial review ahead of time. So it's a really small, really succinct ballot language. There's some magic phrases in there that you will see carried in other states, right to hunt and fish. One of those is the use of traditional methods. That doesn't mean we're pressing reset and allowing people to harpoon manatees
But that would be cool.
I'm not going to comment on whether it would be cool or not.
Well, obviously you've thought about it because you brought it up.
But it does not reset anything on like gill nets or anything like that. Like, I'm a huge gill net ban proponent. CCA's in on this conversation. Like, obviously they would not want anything to jeopardize that. So it doesn't put anything at jeopardy like those kind of conversations. What it means is whatever's legal at the time of passage will stay legal. So traditional archery, inshore fishing, cast netting, like all that stuff will continue to stay legal the same way it is now. That also doesn't mean those regulations can't change based on FWC.
Yeah.
It doesn't remove them from the standpoint. And the other kind of funny language is hunting, fishing, and the taking of fish and game will be the preferred method of managing fish and wildlife.
Huh.
And what that really means is we don't want to go straight to like paid contractors.
Yeah.
Like, you look on the alligator side, we have nuisance trappers, great program. But before you get to a nuisance trapper, wouldn't you like to give the public the opportunity to manage that animal through hunting or fishing or whatever the tool is? Lionfish. You see new species kind of pop up.
Yeah.
Or you see a boom in a species. You want hunting and fishing and to be like considered first.
Yeah.
Doesn't say must be, but considered first, preferred, moving forward for any kind of opportunities that arise for that.
Man, it sounds like an all-out win-win-win.
There's no reason to be against this. I mean,
if you want clean water.
Yeah, land conservation in Florida is a huge deal. We've talked about the wildlife corridor before.
Yeah.
20% of the wildlife corridor was acquired with licensed dollars.
Yeah.
Sportsmen's licensed dollars.
And that's what a lot of people.
It's gigantic.
That's a big portion of this right to hunt and fish that a lot of people don't realize. If you're sitting there, and I don't know why you'd be listening to this show if you're not into hunting and fishing, but if you are on the fence and maybe you're not a big hunter and fisherman, and you're wondering why you would want the right to hunt and fish, that to me is a big point, is the licensed dollars. What a lot of people don't realize is when you buy that rod and reel at your local tackle shop, there's a portion of that rod and reel that you're paying for that's an excise tax. And that excise tax is charged to the manufacturers, the distributors, and it's passed along to you as a person buying the rod and reel at the tackle shop. But that little bit of money is going towards conservation. And then on top of that, when you buy your license, the same thing happens. So hunters and fishermen, even if you never join a group like All Florida or Florida Guides Association or
CCA or whatever,
any group like that, if you never join one of those groups, you're still giving quite a bit of money towards conservation when you buy your tackle, when you buy your license. So we're funding a huge part of this as hunters and fishermen.
I always buy the Gold Sportsman, but what's a fishing license now? $15, $18?
I know for out-of-state residents, when they come into our shop to get a license, it's like about 18.
And so they allocate back based on the number of anglers in your state, based on the amount of fishable water in your state, et cetera, et cetera. The feds send the money back through the Dingle-Johnson or Sport Fish Restoration Act fund. So that money, if you spend $18, you're probably getting another $5 to $10 per angler back from the feds.
And then
So
on
it's
top
almost
of
like doubling. On the hunting side, it's for sure a double. It's 18 and 18.
And that money, that is that Dingle Johnson money, that's conservation money, that goes to fund things like boat ramps.
Absolutely. There's
Access.
There's percentages of what's allocated, and I don't remember them, and it'd be boring, but there's some percentage of it that has to go for access for boat ramp maintenance and new boat ramp. So public opportunity, not just for hunters and anglers,
Yeah.
for tour boats, for recreational boaters, for folks just wanting to go cruise around, for jet skis, for kayak, like all that stuff is riding on the backs of this, which is why this is so important. And I say it all the time. If you want clean water, if you want clean land, you want hunters and anglers you want hunting and angling to exist, because then you have an impetus to keep it.
Yeah.
You have an impetus to have clean water because then you got good fishing. You have an impetus to have wild lands because you got people
good
that want to
hunting.
chase game. Yeah, it's and land takes care of water.
Yeah.
You know, we see all kind of water impairments as you change development on land, and you can get really complex in that, but you change how fast it gets into a system and how dirty it is when it's in the system from nutrients from runoff and everything else. So it gets really complex. Hunting and fishing, huge conservation win.
That's something really cool I learned from you, and taking a bigger holistic view. You call it landscape conservation,
Landscape
right?
conservation.
And it's interesting if you think about it simply and just boil it down really simple, is if you take like an intercoastal waterway and you build these artificial canals and you concrete a nice street, you make some nice foundations for some nice homes and some lawns with St. Augustine grass, and you're watering your lawn, you're driving your car up and down the street, all of a sudden it rains, everything on top of that gets wiped right into the bay.
Exactly right.
Whereas if it was conservation area, if it was an area like a wildlife corridor or a conservation easement, all of a sudden that natural land takes care of itself. You don't have the cars driving on it. You don't have the brake dust. You don't have the watering. You don't have any of those situations. And anything that happens to be on land gets caught and filtered out as it makes its way down through the natural ecosystem.
Nailed it.
Yeah.
You said it better than I could have. You don't need me anymore.
Oh, I've learned. We've got more on the other side coming up. We still got to talk about Lake O discharges and more. Plus, a few of our callers are writing in the Facebook chat. We got to hear from Donald Waberman, and hopefully we'll hear from you as well. Write us in Facebook, Real Animals, or Captain Dylan Hubbard, or Hubbard's Marina. No calls this morning, but you can join us in the Facebook chat. Real Animals Radio. We'll be right back. Mick Dodge says, sorry for being late. I was unavoidably detained. What does that mean?
Dude, that sounds like a...
It sounds like you just
The
got
cop-
released from jail.
yeah, the cop that blew by me going 100 miles an hour went by and saw Mick.
There was a lot of police out this morning.
There was a lot of police out this morning.
Like a lot of jurisdictions. Like I'm driving up Almerton. I saw Manatee County. I saw Sarasota County. I saw Pinellas County. They must have like some sort of meeting or something.
Donald's giving us some stuff here. Hold on.
Yep. Talking about his kayak meets.
Gotcha. Next one is March 9th.
Mm-hmm.
Maximo Park, shelter number 13.
Well, you guys should join the Warrior Shootout.
Oh,
Because
there you go.
March 9th is the Warrior Shootout Day.
Combine.
So you can go kayaking and have your kayak meetup and be a part of the Warrior Shootout.
That's brilliant.
Boom. Oh, yeah, that's right. We got to talk about the boat show.
Miami Boat Show. Have you seen anything cool from it?
Dude,
Oh, should we not talk about that yet? Should we wait till
yeah, we should wait for it. But, yeah, we got some cool stuff to talk about. Duncan Duo. What was it? It was all FLA dot or oh, never mind. It's my history.
/
R2F8.
Yep. I got contacted a couple times this week about kayak drop-ins off 41 that have
Whoa.
been shut down by DOT due to safety. And there's also a kayak
Due to safety of what?
of people pulling off the side of the road, I guess, to drop their kayaks in because they're not like marked ramps.
Huh.
And there was one in Polk County that happened too. And again, it's like right to hunt and fish. Like, that's why we need it, man. You gotta. I'm not saying they were right or wrong. I don't know those areas that were shut down, but it's not us.
No. We're next
Needles,
up.
though.
There it is.
Radio show. By Hubbard Marina. Now your captains, Mike Anderson and Dylan Hubbard.
It's actually Captain Travis Thompson, Dylan Hubbard this morning. No Captain Mike Anderson, unfortunately, caught up at the Miami Boat Show, which we're going to talk a little bit about this morning. Plus, we got to talk about a few things from our Facebook chat and Lake O discharges, gag grouper numbers, and more on this little bit of a pre-rainy Saturday morning. Also want to give a shout out to our friends over there at Affordable Roofing Systems. Whether you need a shingle, metal, tile, or flat roof, our friends at Affordable Roofing Systems are your safest choice for repairs or replacements. With over 3 decades of roofing experience, let Affordable Roofing Systems guide you through this important process today. They're defined by integrity, respect, and honesty, and they have a personalized and professional approach to doing business. Call 888-397-ROOF for your free estimate or visit them online at affordableroofingflorida.com. Now, back to what we were talking about before the break there. Definitely excited about the right to hunt and fish. We posted the link there in the Facebook chat. We also had Donald Waberman come into our Facebook chat. He normally calls in, but
He's called in every time I've ever been on the show, I think.
Oh, yeah, dude. He's the #1 caller. He had I think it was some sort of heart condition. He was in the hospital and
Called from the hospital or something. That's
yeah,
right.
You remember that story?
Yes.
Yeah, he's in the Hall of Fame for Real Animals Callers. But he called in, or tried to call in, and was talking about his kayak outing last weekend at Fort DeSoto. They caught a lot of fish, had a good time, had a barbecue on the beach afterwards, hanging out. And they have another kayak meetup coming up on March 9th at Maximo Park, shelter number 13, if you want to join them. And keep in mind, March 9th is the Warrior Shootout as well. So
Boom.
you can join the Warrior Shootout, attend the captain's meeting, then go to the kayak meetup at Maximo Park, shelter 13, hang out with everybody in the kayak thing, and then
Eat barbecue.
eat barbecue, then go to the Warrior Shootout weigh-in.
Here's where I'm
Potentially
at on
win.
this whole thing is I wonder if I could eat twice.
I feel like you could.
Like, I
feel
wonder
you
if I could
plan
eat
that out.
at a couple of different places in that, maybe not even fish, just go hang out and eat.
I might become a kayak fisherman.
There you go. Just so you can go and eat.
Sounds like a plan to me. Yeah, definitely going to be a good day. Again, March 9th, Warrior Shootout, and also the kayak meetup at Maximo Park, shelter 13. So lots of cool stuff coming up there. Plus, we mentioned it before, the MRIP gag numbers.
Oh, man.
Yeah, man. They actually announced an adjustment, pretty historical. So
Why did they announce an adjustment? Like, what do you think triggered that?
public outcry.
Thank you.
This is
People that say showing up or speaking up doesn't make a difference.
yeah.
That's stuff that has to be edited off this air. It's baloney,
It's
right?
been proven wrong. I mean, literally public comment and people being involved in the process 100% changed the outcome of this gag grouper fiasco.
400, it was 400 emails they got or something. It was a substantial number, and
a lot of public comment, and it was in a very short amount of time that recreational fishermen kind of stood up and took note of this.
Yeah, it
gag
seemed like
grouper
that happened
problem.
in like a week or less.
And what's crazy is, and this has happened in the past with sometimes with the MRIP numbers, where we get an outlier that caused a big data spike, and we were basically told to deal with it. These are the numbers. And this is the first time that I've seen that the feds were like, wow, we got to do something about this. And they've gone in and they've released draft numbers. And the Gulf Council posted it to their Facebook page the other day. It's still not exactly what we want, but it's also still not finalized numbers. This was a draft. And essentially it went from, to boil it down, it went from 1.4 million pounds in private rec landings to like 700,000. So literally cut the landings in half, which is dramatic.
The problem there was to do fishery science, you take transects or you take points and do samples. The only shore sample they were taking was the Sunshine Skyway.
Yeah, there was
where one
intercept.
angler or something had caught, like it was really low, but they took and extrapolated that as though 50 anglers a day had caught this many fish or something.
Yeah, and what was really interesting about the whole process is it was very transparent. Is they did this presentation that released these numbers and everybody freaked out, but in reality, at the Gulf Council meeting, they were never going to really pay attention to that shore mode landing. That one intercept that caused 106,000 pounds of landing, the PSE or the percent standard error on that was 98%.
Wow.
So essentially they were 98% sure this was an errant, like this should be ignored. This doesn't make sense. We shouldn't use this. So they were already going to throw that number out, but they included it in the presentation and presented it to the public because that was part of the findings. So it was really interesting, kind of the juxtaposition of this whole process and how NOAA really took the approach of put all our cards on the table, air the dirty laundry, take the hit on the chin from the public, and then let's go back in and try to improve this process. So
that's what you want to see as a stakeholder. Like we have both in the past, I think, got into it with agencies over stuff. And in reality, this is the way it should work.
I'm furious that the numbers came out like this. I'm furious about where we're at. I'm furious that we're so far behind. What we see on the water isn't matching up to the science. There's a lot of problems that I'm upset about. But at the same time, this is kind of overall, this process is on a positive track. We're heading down the right path here. And it just takes a lot of patience. And it's tough to say because it's affecting our livelihood. So it's a challenge, but we're in a good place.
Would you say it's a teenage wasteland?
I don't even know what to say to that. Real Animals Radio, we got more on the other side. Still talking the gag grouper numbers. We got to finish up this conversation and more. So stay tuned. Real Animals Radio. We'll be right back. That's funny.
You know that was the song, right?
Yeah.
Okay. You're a little more hardcore than I am on music taste.
What?
I swear, dude. I feel like I have said more in the last year than I should have ever said in my life. Don't kill horses.
So they
just like maybe don't kill horses anymore.
They stole a bunch of horses to slaughter them for their meat.
I guess so.
That's crazy.
Well, you know, there's a big trial going on down there with the Python Cowboy.
What about?
Because he killed a freaking horse.
Why?
I don't know. Why would you shoot a horse? The only scenario I could see shooting a horse is one broke its leg and you're out in a cattle ranch in the middle of nowhere and like there's nothing. You need to save it from something. It's the only scenario I can see.
Why did he shoot it? We don't know.
We don't know. There's a trial going on. Like he got fired from the Water Management District over it as a contractor. Like it's a big deal. No one talks about it, but like you can Google it. There's nothing on the internet.
Wow.
There's a trial happening about it. It's crazy, man.
Made-up numbers with no science is unacceptable. I agree, William Keene, but at the same time, it's a little bit more involved than that. We actually have a cool website page now on Hubbard's Marina's website about fisheries science and management, and it kind of explains a little bit more about why it's more than just made-up science.
I feel like we went by that fast, but dude, it's such a big deal to me when you see people show up like that.
Yeah. We still got to talk more about it.
Like, that's a big deal. Oh, I forgot it's a state fair. Did you go to the state fair?
Unfortunately.
You did?
Not this year, but I went last year. That is crazy, crazy, crazy.
Yeah. Yes, exactly, William Earl Keene. So it's main tenet of the North American model of conservation. Science must drive wildlife policy. Science must drive wildlife policy.
Well, that's the thing is the numbers are science. People say, oh, it's made up. It's not backed in science. But the challenge is when it comes to private recreational fisheries-dependent science, which is a small minority of the overall science plan, but it's a bigger minority because the number of private recreational anglers is so high. The only way to collect that science is if you don't know the number of anglers, you don't know how many trips they make, you don't know their catch per unit of effort, you don't know their landings, you don't know their discards. The only way to get those numbers is to use MRIP and to extrapolate, do an APIS survey, angular point intercept survey, take those numbers and extrapolate it over a geographic region, over a spatial time period, temporal time period. So it's science. It's not science that we like, and when science gives us answers we don't like, we get upset. But unfortunately, without a mandated federal permit to fish in federal waters for recreational anglers, without some sort of mandatory reporting, this is what we're left with.
I think the other thing that I've heard some scientists say to me, and I really like it, University of Florida says this all the time, no matter who you talk to in any of their ecology departments, science is never settled. Mm-hmm. Like, we can't say, oh, this is how we do this science. Yeah. Don't ever touch it or change it again.
That's
there has to be an evolution to it, which is, I think,
the science we're using now isn't right. So I agree with the sentiment of made up numbers with no science is not acceptable. I agree with the sentiment and the feeling behind that, but ultimately, realistically, a better way of saying that is the science we're currently using is unacceptable. We got to improve upon it.
Yep.
And that's, I think, the message we need to carry forward.
Well, and yeah, you go right away in the weeds on that. Is it science is bad, or is it the amount of data that we have, the collection points? We don't have enough data. Like,
yeah, the number of intercepts is unacceptable.
The scientific method may be correct.
The gag grouper landing numbers, 32 intercepts.
Yeah.
32 intercepts made up those numbers.
Yeah.
Which is unacceptable.
In the Gulf of Mexico.
Yeah.
Come on, man.
32 intercepts across 5 Gulf states.
Yeah. That's insane.
Yeah. But that's also the good news is MRIP is currently undergoing a pilot project and getting more funding to do more frequent intercepts and to increase their wave period. So instead of doing 2-month waves, they're going to do single-month waves. So instead of 6 waves, there'll be 12, one for each month.
So you're doubling the amount of waves.
Double the amount of waves, and then also increasing the number of surveys, I think almost threefold. So
really?
That is going to be a huge increase.
Changing the data sample in a drastic way, which will give you better data.
Yeah, better data accuracy.
Depending on the data collection. Like, I mean, there's other
and that's coming.
Things that could be flaws in it, but again, the only way to fix it is it's not like we can say, hey, let's just ignore NOAA.
Yeah.
That's never going to happen.
And you really can't throw the baby out with the bathwater. So.
Yep.
So
that's what I tell people all the time on really hard conversations, be it spraying or whatever. Like, what's the choice?
And if you go from 32 intercepts and you triple that, and now you're at 90 intercepts, and you go from a 2-month wave to a 1-month wave, now that gag grouper numbers would be 2 waves with 96 intercepts instead of 32 intercepts in 1 wave.
Right.
So it would really improve our accuracy right now. We're back, Real Animals Radio on this pre-weather Saturday morning as we hunker down for the weather that's incoming. Want to make sure we give a shout out to our friends over there at Relentless Perpetual Edge Knives. They're the world's first self-sharpening knife that sharpens as it cuts. Ultra hard carbide, never rust titanium blade, and true grit glass reinforced ABS handle on a knife that is perfectly balanced and comes in 5 great models to choose from. Take the work out of filleting a pile of fish today and get your Relentless Knives. Go to relentlessknivesusa.com to find out for yourself why this is the knife all the pros are talking about. We ended the last segment talking a little bit about the gag grouper numbers and the adjustment that happened thanks to the public and the private recreational anglers. We talked a little bit more about that on break, but essentially it's a good step in the right direction. And right now it's still high. The numbers, the draft numbers that were released was like 704, 706,000 pounds, something in that range. The ACL originally was like 400 and some change thousand pounds for 2023. So if they finalize the number around 7, that means we overfished the quota by almost 100%. And there is an accountability measure in place that says you have to pay back any overages in the following year.
Right.
So if you're a quota, again, I'm not great at math, so we're going to boil this down real simply. If your quota was 100 pounds in 2023 and the numbers come out and say you caught 160 pounds, then that means the 100 pounds that you're supposed to be able to catch in 2024.
It's going to be reduced by 60.
Exactly. The overage would reduce that quota. So essentially, if they say we caught 700,000 pounds and our quota was 400,000 pounds, then that means fast forward to 2024, you're only going to have 100,000 pounds left to catch. And there is a tipping point, a point of no return, where if that quota is so small, they won't open a season.
Yeah.
Because there's such a high chance of
There's
overfishing.
a risk of you overfishing it.
Yep. So that is a big question mark right now, is where are those numbers going to be finalized? How much quota is going to be left on the table, and what is that season going to look like? And those answers should be coming very soon. We expect a finalized number and a finalized season projection, at least we were told, at the April Gulf Council meeting. So not far away. We're talking mid to late
2 months.
April.
Yeah, 2 months.
Yeah, and red grouper is another question mark too, because the numbers on red grouper were just as kind of errant as the gag grouper numbers, and those red grouper numbers haven't even been drafted yet. They kind of shift their focus. We saw a lot of problems with Wave 4 and MREP on red grouper, and then Wave 5 came out, and the gag grouper numbers were even more kind of questionable. So they've really shifted their focus to the gag grouper and focused on that. Whereas the red grouper, I haven't seen an update on those numbers yet, but everything I've heard about red grouper basically is we're looking at a very similar season. So I would expect a very similar season in 2023 to in 2024 to what we saw in 2023 for red grouper. So at least there's that kind of positive.
It's like how many you ever see, I forget what movie it was National Lampoon's Vegas Vacation, when
Yeah.
they go in the dam and they're like sticking their fingers in holes.
Yeah.
It's what it feels like sometimes on the conservation front, right? Like
It does.
How many places can you stick your finger to
And then
keep
all
it
of a
from
sudden
leaking?
getting more involved with like the Florida Guides Association.
Oh, my gosh.
Now you're at the state level dealing with FWC stuff, and now we're hunting and fishing in the Florida Guides Association, and then being a part of the Charter Fishermen's Association, which is a Gulf-wide thing, and the Gulf Council meetings. It's never ending, seemingly.
It never ends.
Yeah.
You could literally go to a meeting almost every day.
You could.
You could go to a meeting almost every day.
It's literally inspiring.
Oh my gosh!
I feel like you
inspiring
do.
is a word.
I feel like you do go to a meeting every day.
I go to a lot.
I think you're the one person I know that goes to more meetings than me.
I go to a lot. Although, there's sometimes I'm like, dang, Dylan's at meetings. I need to.
Because you're also not only in FWC meetings and some of the federal meetings, but you're also in water management district
Oh, yeah.
meetings and wildlife corridor meetings. And
Oh, yeah.
it's interesting. We're going to the
Capitol
next week.
That's
aren't
right. We partnered with FGA, All Florida, 18 other groups, Ducks Unlimited, Safari Club, 6a-8a. Like
Yeah.
I don't want to leave anybody out, but like
Everybody.
there's 20 groups on the logos, and we're throwing an event at the Capitol. We're meeting legislators, we're meeting staffers, we're meeting the commissioners. Like
160 legislators.
Yeah.
And a bunch of fishermen and hunters in
what
a room.
could possibly go awry? Letting
There's
us
gonna-
talk to politicians.
There's going to be booze and food. So nothing seems wrong with that.
But that's work that you don't see. It's not a super glamorous picture, but honestly, you build relationships in those rooms and you get the right people. You can start to make some changes to some laws, some regulations, some stuff. Right to hunt fish, we talked about it earlier. We got that done through relationships. Mike Elfenbein had a relationship with a legislator, and a lot of that stemmed from that opportunity that presented itself. So
It's amazing.
you just don't know how that stuff's going to kind of play out, and all you can do is keep networking, keep pushing hard.
Yeah, that's what a lot of people ask me after a Gulf Council meeting, a week-long meeting that you travel to another Gulf state for. Like I'll fly to Texas for 5 days and sit in a Gulf Council meeting for 9 hours a day. And you fly home and people are like, how'd the meeting go? What happened?
Yeah.
Well, nothing really happened. It's not like you have
spent $2,000
Yeah.
and nothing happened. Like, how do you just, because
I call it networking with serious implications. It's like getting stalked by a turtle. You know, it's something's gonna happen and it's gonna be serious and it's gonna have widespread implications, but it doesn't happen fast. Everything is really, really slow moving. But it's all about the relationships that you build and being a part of the conversation. And if you're in the room, you're in part of the conversation, you're a part of the community, then when things do come up, you have the opportunity to influence.
Well, and Trip Ackman, our friend from 6a-8 Florida, he's their policy guy. Great guy. I've heard Trip say before, I can't talk about a lot of the stuff we do because you can't broadcast it. And it's not because of anything nefarious, but like there's times you go sit down with a director of an agency or a lead decision maker or a politician somewhere, and you're having a one-on-one meeting, a conversation that's 15 minutes, an hour, whatever. You don't want to really go broadcast that. You're working the system a little bit.
I literally was thinking about that on the drive over here this morning because I wanted to have a guest on the show next week to talk about some things. But then I'm like, they can't talk about any of this and we can't talk about any of this. And just like what you said, it's not nefarious. It's not something that's being hidden. It's just something that you're working kind of those relationships and essentially it's something forthcoming, but you can't really talk about it ahead of time.
And a lot of times you sit down and you tease things out. Well, what if we open gag to this, or what if we did that? Like you have those conversations. Those aren't really things you broadcast because you don't want to like
the what ifs.
Yeah, the what ifs and the kind of batting ideas around and exchange of ideas and stuff. But like that's hard work that gets done in those types of rooms and in those types of settings.
And also it's like one of those things, like let's say you have a situation like with Gag Grouper, no one's happy about it and you want to talk more about that, but someone who's a part of the system, like let's say they work for an organization or they work for an agency, they might feel really strongly like, hey, this is really messed up and this is the path forward and this is what we're working towards. But they can't come out and say that or they'll lose their job because they can't throw shade at a government agency when they are a part of a government agency.
I was once derided for making comments that a person at the agency I was making comments to wrote. So someone inside,
say that slower for people in the back.
Went and made comments on a topic, and I won't say what, and two of the leading experts in the United States on this particular topic wrote my comments. They worked on this issue. One of them had worked for the agency for a long time and had retired, and I made their comments on my behalf as me speaking, and I got derided by the decision makers as how dare you would say something like that. And then behind the scenes, everyone came over and said, thank you for saying something like that.
That's hilarious. So a staff of an agency wrote a comment, Travis said the comment, and then that agency got upset about it when it was literally written by someone who works for that agency.
Yep.
That is a very common problem. And that's what's interesting to me and also a little bit frustrating to me in this whole process is sometimes you hear like, oh, the FWC is worthless. They're doing this. I can't believe it. They don't listen to us. But on the inside, and we know, being involved in the process, that there's some people at FWC that really, really care and really, really work hard to improve the process and want to hear from fishermen. And so often some of that misinformation gets out there and people listen too much.
The vast majority of them care. And even the commissioners, they care. They wouldn't be doing it if they didn't care. Like, they could find other stuff to do with their jobs. I just think sometimes the messaging doesn't get to them correctly from the
100%.
stakeholders the way we want it to. And so developing those relationships, both with the staff, with the decision makers, et cetera, it takes a lot of time. Like, it takes 20 hours, 30 hours spread over 2 years in 15-minute increments to get that relationship to the level where you can call them on a Thursday night and say, hey, let's talk about gag grouper.
100%.
Hey, let's talk about whatever the thing is. Like, this is my perspective, and this is what my stakeholder group is saying. Florida Guides or All Florida or 6a-8a. Like, it's just it takes a bajillion hours to build that stuff up.
100%. And Ryan hit the nail on the head. His bottom line, we need more federal funding to pay for necessary surveys and recreational reporting program.
Exactly right.
One of the biggest things that I learned going through this process, there's 8 federal fishery management councils across the United States that manage the fisheries, and the Gulf Council being the one we're most familiar with, but also we have the South Atlantic Council and the Caribbean Council that share one science center in Miami. The Southeast Fisheries Science Center is responsible for all the stock assessments for all the South Atlantic, all the Gulf, and all the Caribbean. And they're spread too thin, and their survey budget is too low. So the fact that we share one science center is unacceptable. When you look over at like the Pacific Council, they'll have multiple science centers for one council, and they're able to do stock assessments more frequently. The fact that we're only doing stock assessments on things like gag grouper and red snapper every 5 to 7 years is unacceptable.
And I'm just going to say this really quick. We don't have to dwell here. You think the Gulf's a mess? Go talk to the South Atlantic guys.
Oh, dude,
because they like
we don't have enough time.
They'll stand on this table and yell at us. We'd have to mute all the microphones because of the language and stuff. It would get really ugly.
The South Atlantic is a mess.
It's a mess.
I'm very happy we're over here in the Gulf. But yes, that's a huge problem, funding. And the thing is, funding can only be solved by people like you and I, because the people of the Gulf Council know this. The people of the South Atlantic, they know this. But they can't go lobby. There's laws against them asking for more money.
But we can push on lawmakers to give them the money.
Point proven. So we got more on the other side. Real Animals Radio. We'll be right back.
South Atlantic guys, like, I laugh at them a little bit. Like when we have we have a guy on the advisory council or whatever, the stakeholder advisory council. All Florida has one of our advisory board members is on that. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, dude, I just laugh when he calls me. I'm like, I don't know what to tell you, man. Like, this is just a cluster.
Yeah. It's not going to get any better.
No.
Until it gets worse.
I'm like, let me call Martha. You talk to her. She understands it better than I do.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's interesting, too. Like Martha, Jessica, Tripp. They're only involved over there in the South Atlantic. They don't really go to Gulf Council meetings anymore. I mean, obviously, Martha did a lot, but now it's changed.
Yep.
It's interesting how
their focus shifts.
Yeah.
But it's the same way with them, right? They've got a limited number of...
But they're talking right now for the first time about a limited entry permit and a moratorium.
Yep.
That would change the game for the South Atlantic.
Huge.
So... it'll be interesting to see if that passes.
South Atlantic went first on the, and it wasn't a council thing, but South Atlantic went first on the right whale thing.
Yeah.
So they got restrictions, and then like you and a lot of people stepped up on the rice as well, and we're like, hey,
don't you bring that over here?
Yeah,
in the Gulf.
stop.
You guys can run over the South Atlantic, but don't bring that into the Gulf.
I saw on Twitter last night they said if one right whale dies a year, the population is not sustainable after 8 years or 10 years or something. I forget what that exact number was. Like,
to me, you're past the point of no return.
Yeah, if that's the case, dude, like
there's no way. Natural mortality is going to kill more than one right whale a year. That's
and there's 2 dead this year, and they think a third one's already going to die. I'm like, the species is, and I don't like that a species is done. Like, I'm not at all saying that. It's 100%. Just like I don't know how to fix that.
I don't think you can.
I don't know how to fix it.
I think that's a bigger conversation that needs to happen is like, all right, we all agree this is really sad about these right whales, but if the population is already past the point of no return, regulating commerce and anglers and sportsmen isn't worth it, because the net effect is you're spending billions of taxpayer dollars to do all this research and funding for a species that is never going to be able to turn around.
Yep. That's
Stop
exactly
wasting
right.
your time. Stop wasting
You
your
know,
money.
this is not.
Stop wasting our money.
I wouldn't want to talk about this on the radio, but like we can talk about it now. The grasshopper sparrow in the Everglades.
Yeah.
That's Betty Osceola's contention with the Miccosukee tribe.
Mm-hmm.
Is she doesn't want that species to go extinct, but there's no evidence of that species in these like 2 or 3 subpopulation areas. Why can't we put water there? Why? Well, because there were species. We saw some there 5 years ago. There was one that whistled when we landed a helicopter on it. Like, okay, that species isn't going to make it if this is the alternative, and we're killing a whole lot of other stuff in order to maybe save something that might have been there at one time. Dude, that gets dicey.
Put some water there.
Yeah, like I tend to side with Betty on a lot of that stuff.
She knows what she's talking about.
She dang sure does.
Angel, it's not that they're not talking about red grouper, it's that they're focused on gag grouper. The red grouper numbers are coming. And honestly, the red grouper situation is less of an effect, right? Because the red grouper numbers can't, even if they don't change the red grouper numbers at all, it's not going to really affect our season, because we're going to have the same season as we did last year, because those numbers affected the last 19 days of the season. So
Right.
gag grouper is way more of a priority, and that's why they've shifted focus to gag grouper, because the gag grouper numbers said no gag grouper season for this year. So that's why their focus is very, very much focused on gag grouper, because they're trying to save access to gag grouper this year. Whereas the red grouper, that season access is still preserved, and it's not really in danger. So I think that's us.
Radio show presented by Hubbard's Marina. Now your captains, Mike Anderson and Dylan Hubbard.
We're back. Bartow Ford Real Animals Radio on this Saturday morning, here for 2 hours. Unfortunately, only 2 hours. Mike's not here, so we didn't make that joke in the beginning. I missed it. Had to bring it back. I want to give a shout out to our friends over there at Ace Heating and Cooling. For over 20 years, Ace Heating and Cooling has been the name you can trust in the heating and air conditioning business in Hillsborough County. Chris Myers and his guys service all brands and do residential and commercial repairs, maintenance, and full replacements. They send out technicians, not salesmen, because they try to build a long-lasting customer relationship that holds up over time. Call 813-657-8818. Again, 813-657-8818, or look them up online, brandonac.net. And if you find out for yourself why, Ace Heating and Cooling is the easy choice for the Real Animals radio team.
I've known Chris Myers a long time.
Really?
Yeah. I think he went on his first duck hunt with me.
I remember this.
Maybe
story
his
now.
first duck he shot with me or something.
That's
really, really, really good guy.
Yeah. He was in the studio. He's super fishy cat, too. He has two boats.
He gets after it. He almost bought my boat one time.
Wow.
I was going to sell a boat, and he almost bought it. He made me a really fair offer, but I didn't really want to sell it at the time.
Yeah.
I actually just sold that boat last week.
Oh, small world.
Small world.
Didn't want to sell it at the time, but now you do.
But yeah, I mean, that was like 5 or 6 years ago. But really good dude, fishy dude, gets after it, hunting, fishing, whatever. Like he goes.
That's awesome.
He's a good dude. So it's nice. I say it's always nice to spend money with people that care about the same stuff we care about, right?
Yeah. And to me, it's just trustworthiness, right?
Yep.
I trust a fellow fisherman and hunter, and I like to spend money with people that like the same things I do.
That's exactly
It's like you want to spend money with your friends, and if you can't spend money with a really good friend, spend money with someone who likes the same things you do.
$1,000,000,000.
Yeah, because that money is going to go to help him fish and hunt more, which to me sounds awesome.
Guaranteed. Guaranteed.
Captain Bobby Woodard tried to call in, but unfortunately no calls this morning. So you got to join us on the Facebook chat. Captain Jonathan Moss, another FGA board member in the chat this morning. Good morning, Jonathan. Love to see everybody chatting fishing.
He's listening on iHeartRadio.
Yeah, there you go. You can listen to iHeartRadio if you're not in Florida, which makes it easy. So when you're out of town, you can listen on Facebook or iHeartRadio app. And always a good time to join the conversation. So Kathy has a good question. Is the same way they determine inshore guidelines as well. So inshore guidelines in state waters are managed by FWC, and FWC has a much more granular approach to science and management because their funding is a lot different, and the way they set up and the way the structure is set up state management wise is 100% different. So remember, at the federal level, MSA, the Magnuson-Stevens Act, is what governs the way fisheries management works. The MSA, established in 1976, is actually what dictated the Gulf Council be stood up and kind of set up the whole council process. So MSA drives everything at the federal level. At the state level, FWC was designed to manage it, and I'll let you take it away.
Yeah,
Travis.
so FWC was basically created by constitutional authority in 2000-ish. I think 98 we voted on it. It was created around 2000. And they have a division. So Dylan and I talk frequently about the hunting division, HGM, or the fishing division, saltwater fisheries or freshwater fisheries. But they have a division called FWRI, Florida Wildlife Research Institute. They have
Located in downtown St. Pete.
I think they have a number of them around the state.
Yes.
But they have one in St. Pete. Those guys.
HQ is in St. Pete.
That's
Yeah.
yeah. So they have a number of guys and gals there that go out and do these surveys. They get volunteers to work with the surveys. They work with other groups. They partner. They do the science on inshore fisheries. They don't make the determination on should we open or close snook. They go and simply do stock assessments and research on. There's some terms I'll give you. I can't explain them very well, but one of them is indices of relative abundance. The other is McCall's with two L's, MCCALL, McCall's basin theory. You can Google those and go read about those. Those are some of the methods that they use for doing inshore fisheries assessment. And they'll do transects, they do surveys in areas. You can't just go to like the snook spawning site and do a survey on snook. You have to actually, to create a good sample, survey in areas where you also don't see snook, so that you can create a baseline over a geographic region. And those guys are way smarter than Dylan or I could ever explain it. And we're stakeholders in this world, but they do really good science on it.
Yeah, and February 10th coming up. Is it? Did it? Oh, it already passed.
That was last weekend, I think.
Son of a sailor. I was going to talk about Marine Quest.
Oh, it's a great event.
Yeah, Marine Quest just passed. So keep in mind, you can Google Marine Quest, and the 2025 information will be coming out soon, I'm sure. But that is an opportunity to actually go and look through FWRI. It's really, really cool. They kind of show you all the good information. But stratified statistical random sampling is what they do across different geographic transects. It's amazing the granularity the state takes.
Strong science.
Very different from the federal level.
Strong science.
Very different. So more on that to come on the other side. Don't go anywhere. Real Animals Radio will be right back.
That's always one of my frustrations when people get on FWC about, well, the redfish population numbers or the snook population numbers, we don't have recent enough data. I'm like, dude, you don't understand what bad science looks like. Like, we've got really good data.
FWC is out there nonstop. The
Crushing
data collection that the state does is amazing. And they get more funding every year. DeSantis just gave them more funding than they've ever had.
Yep.
The state is really well funded when it comes to science collection.
We're flush with cash.
We don't pay our science folks enough.
Agreed.
The biologists are very underpaid, but they definitely have plenty of budget to do a lot of surveys. It's crazy.
Yeah, Florida's at the bottom of states on paying folks like that.
Yep.
Which is why, if you graduated with a marine biology degree, you come to Florida to work for 3 or 4 years, and you can write your ticket to where you want to go work.
Once you get experience in Florida, because we have the budget to do a lot of surveys and we do a lot of cool surveys, you get good, you get some experience, and then you go to another state.
Yep.
With a smaller budget.
Or a
but they
nonprofit
pay
or
you
whatever.
Better.
Yep. You go find some money.
Yeah. Crazy.
It sucks for us a little bit because then we have to train somebody else.
And it's funny because, like, if you go to the Gulf Council, the federal level, if you go to a lot of NGOs, almost everybody you talk to, yeah, I started at FWC.
I worked at FWC.
I worked at FWRI. I worked for the state of Florida. Now they don't because they didn't get paid enough.
So you think it's just that on fisheries? It's the same on the hunting side.
Really?
The guy that runs Texas's waterfowl program used to work for FWC. The guy that runs Tennessee's waterfowl program used to work for FWC. The guy that runs Tennessee's
crazy.
turkey program we do the same thing.
Well, our regional administrator, Dr. Crabtree, he started at FWC. He retired. The new regional administrator, Andy Strelchek, he started at FWC. The assistant regional administrator for NOAA Fisheries, Kim Amendola, she started at FWC. All of them did.
All of them.
It's crazy.
It is. I don't want to say it's the training ground because it's reductive to how good they are.
Yeah.
Because they come in as like they hire the best of the best, I think, and then they work here 2 years, 5 years, whatever, and then they can go find some real money. So I'd love to see us pay our scientists. You know,
It's like private business. You
Yeah.
pay your staff well. You take care of your people. They stay around a while.
and I think as a taxpayer, you'd see less turnover, which would mean less outlay of expense when they get hired, right? Less training expense.
Yep. Lowering turnover definitely helps.
Man, they're rock stars. I think not saying I always agree with them and I don't get into it with them, but generally speaking, like
Yeah.
if a scientist from FWC is
I
talking about something, they're
like the way the federal management works better and the council process. I like management better because I feel like you can be more involved and have a little bit more of a say and you can have a better connection with the council folks.
Yep.
But I like the way the state does science and data collection.
Well, and I think that's something
I like state science.
not
I
to
like
bore
federal
not to
management.
bore the listeners this early, like the Facebook group, but that's something that I think we've got to fix. Like we can't change the constitutional structure of the commissioners. If we could start to develop better relationships with them, I think we could have more influence.
Because,
and
like,
more-
I myself can run for a Gulf Council seat, and I have a pretty good chance of getting on the Gulf Council.
you and I aren't getting
I
put
could-
on the FWC commission.
I could apply 100 times for the FWC commission, and I will never, ever, 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 ever get put on that commission.
Correct.
That's a problem.
Yep. I agree with you.
Yeah,
I agree with you.
yeah. And at the Gulf Council, I could pick up my cell phone now, and I could text, call, and get somebody on the Gulf Council to answer anytime. I mean, I was talking to two of them yesterday. Whereas the FWC commission, I couldn't reach one of those people. And even if I went to an FWC commission meeting myself, I mean, I'm not as connected as you are. I don't think I could have a conversation with the commissioner. Whereas if I go to a Gulf Council meeting, I'll eat dinner, go to the bar, hang out at the hotel, and I'll talk to all of the council members.
And we're not on the air. I'll say I think that is a known problem, and you included, we are working to try to fix that.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's part of the reason we're doing the thing we're doing next week.
Yeah.
To get time with those people outside, and we've said for years, we've got to be able to have access to these people in get to know them settings.
Yeah.
I want to know what your dog's name is. Like,
Yeah, like the council has done a really good job at doing these, like, they call them fireside chats, where the head of the science center, the head of NOAA, the head of the council, the ED, all these people sit together in a panel, and then all the stakeholders can kind of sit in a group around them, and we have this kumbaya conversation, and then it's followed by a happy hour. And it's really nice to be able to kind of connect and ask whatever questions you have and kind of air it out in the group. It's nice.
I would say there's 15 stakeholders that show up at every commission meeting.
Yeah,
Like, there are more than that show up on a specific issue.
yeah.
But you, me, Trip,
Yeah.
Gary, Martha,
It's the same at the Gulf Council.
yeah, like, and then even on the non-consumptive side, Humane Society US, Katrina Shaddix, like there's some people I would disagree with.
Yeah.
I don't think anyone should be excluded from a conversation, though.
What's interesting too at FWC commission meetings that's a little, I guess, off-putting is like when you go to a council meeting, it's very laid back and you can kind of figure it out and navigate the process. When you go to an FWC commission meeting, you walk in, there's like 60 uniformed officers with bulletproof vests and guns on them. like the attitude in the room is much
The roped
different.
off area up front.
Yeah, they're roped off. They're on a pedestal. You can't access them.
Yep.
Whereas at federal level, it's much different. It's very interesting. We're back, Bartow Ford, Real Animals Radio, talking fishing this morning, all things fisheries, science and management, and weather, and more. And I want to give a shout out to our friends over there at Power Pucks, the first power supplied trolling motor quick release bracket. They eliminate the need for exterior power plugs, which can snag lines, corrode easily, and just be an eyesore cluttering up your deck. Go to powerpucks.com and find out for yourself why so many of the pros are making the change over to Power Pucks. Now, we talked a little bit about the gag grouper stuff and fisheries and management before the break. One thing that we haven't had a chance to talk about yet is the Lake O discharges, which are forthcoming. And a lot of people are freaking out on social media about the discharges that are coming. It is frustrating. I am a little concerned as well, actually very concerned as well, and I'm just as frustrated. But one thing that you got to remember, and the one thing that I wanted to take a chance and an opportunity to talk about today is the discharges stink, but the fact that we're having high volume discharges, to me, I'm going to say this, and then Travis, you can add your point, because I know we had a little bit of a disagreement, is to me it's a little bit of a positive thing. Because the fact that we're having a high volume discharge is because the lake level is so high. And the lake level is so high because of some of the positive change that's occurred. And I call it positive change. Travis is going to call it negative change because it affected that lake negatively for those inland freshwater fishermen. But for me, keeping that lake level high meant if you're supposed to keep the lake at 10 feet and we allowed it to get to 20 feet, I'm making these numbers up for an easy example, but if it's supposed to be at 10 feet, we allowed it to get to 20 feet. The idea was if we allow that lake to get higher, the goal is evaporation and just natural processes will keep it to a point where they don't have to do a discharge. That was the idea. So we allowed the lake to get extra high. Now it's at a point where it's extra high. It's at a breaking point, so they have to do discharges, which is unfortunate. It didn't accomplish the goal we wanted it to accomplish. So now we're going to have to deal with that. We're going to have to pay back what we've done. And basically what we've done is we've put off paying back the price being the discharge, because we were hoping to try to offset it and hoping that it would kind of take care of itself, and we were hoping that we wouldn't have to pay it. But now it's coming to roost. And
You stole my credit card analogy.
Yeah, I did. I'm sorry. That was a good analogy.
You can't say we disagree and then steal my analogy to make your point. Dang it, that's not fair.
My bad. I didn't mean to. But
No, and we're dealing with saying we disagree is so primarily saltwater fisheries guy,
yeah.
primarily landscape conservation guy. Like, so I'll dabble into fisheries, I'll dabble into a lot of stuff. Ecologically, the lake has been held too high for too long through a lot of reasons.
So water levels in the lake were held higher because they were trying to not do discharges. And if they hold it high, evaporation and natural processes can sometimes lower it.
No,
Never.
You're going to have to. That's my credit card side. You're going to have to pay the bill at some point.
Mm-hmm.
So if it doesn't matter. The lake can only hold so much water, and it's going to rain. Like, we know it's going to rain. You know you're going to get a tropical storm. We had a freaking tropical system in December.
Yeah,
dumping rain.
Two of them.
So, like, you know it's Florida, and that's going to happen. You've got to get rid of that water, because otherwise it does become a burden to human safety, like a risk to human safety. There's people that live below the lake level, south of the lake.
So if it gets too high, it bursts a level and can kill people.
But beyond that, you're killing the lake in the meantime by holding it too high, because all lakes should have natural systems.
And us in Tampa Bay, we're like, kill the lake, who cares?
Right.
But there's people that make
but
a
all
living
lake,
on that
well,
lake.
and you do want that lake clean. You want that lake to have natural cycles of high-low, because it binds up nutrients in plants. It allows for better fishing, and it allows for cleaner water to be discharged. And when I say cleaner water, I'm talking nutrient-wise.
So me being a saltwater fisherman in Tampa Bay who only cares about the fact that we don't want to see these discharges, I was saying this morning, like, who cares about the lake health? Let it get as high as it wants. It can die for all I care. Just don't do a discharge. That's a very ignorant way to look at it.
It's a NIMBY. It's a NIMBY, a not in my backyard.
Yes, but if that lake is healthy and you allow those cycles of high lows to happen, then the lake's vegetation is healthier. It can scrub some of those nutrients out by itself.
And there's no vegetation growing in the lake, and it,
There's no vegetation growing because we've held it high for too long.
Because sunlight, plants need light to grow. So sunlight can only
Really?
we learned this in 3rd grade biology or something. Sunlight can only penetrate so far. So when you hold the lake level high, the area where plants primarily grow on the edge of lakes is called a littoral zone.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you put too much water on top of the littoral zone, you won't get plants to grow there anymore, and you'll actually kill the plants that were growing. And when the lake lowers, they'll grow back. But the only way we're going to get that lake low is to have a drought, which has all these other implications in the state, like because of drinking water and because there's a lot of, this is not as simple as we don't want discharges in St. Lucie County or we don't want discharges at Fort Myers. And I'm sorry that I don't want you to have discharges either. At the same time, I'd like the lake to be managed correctly ecologically. And
that's interesting. But all this to say, there are some processes going on. Like right now, I know one of our past board members of the Florida Guides Association, Charlie Phillips, he's blowing things up right now, trying to make that EAA reservoir, a canal system. And there's a lot of things that are being talked about, like you mentioned earlier about Betty Osceola wanting to send water to these different areas that they're not currently because they're worried about that certain bird that
the Cape Sable seaside sparrow.
That bird, yeah.
Yep.
That potentially is already gone. And if you start sending water to some of these other areas and using the canals, then all of a sudden you're doing slower, smaller discharges and allowing that water to be scrubbed and kind of sent south.
If you look at SERP, which is the Comprehensive Everglades Restoration Program, I'm going to be wrong on this number because I don't work on SERP every day. I think there's 65 individual projects. Wow. The EAA reservoir is one of them.
There's 65 projects going on?
Yeah, well, there may not. Some may have a dependency. Like we need the EAA reservoir, then we'll build the EAA STA. That might be a different project.
STA is a stormwater
treatment area. Yeah, that's where you build a filter marsh basically to clean water and bind up nutrients ahead of another system. So there's all these levers and buttons that get pushed, and add into that nature's dynamic.
Yeah.
Like it's gonna rain, we're gonna get a hurricane, we're gonna get a wet winter, we're gonna get a dry year, like stuff's gonna happen, and you just can't take all those factors. It's really hard. It's really complex.
That's what I think is another kind of silver lining way to look at this discharge thing is, all right, we're all freaking out that there's a discharge that's going to happen, but they've been discharging water from Lake O since before we were all born. It doesn't matter how old you are listening to this. They've been discharging lake water from before you were born.
A long time.
I mean, we've created this
Not
problem.
before I was born.
The state of Florida, not the state of Florida, but humans have created this problem over millennia. So we can't all of a sudden expect this problem to be fixed in 1 year, 2 years, 5 years, 20 years. I mean, I think all these projects that are ongoing as part of SERP and all these stormwater treatment areas they're trying to create and sending the water south and establishing natural flow and all these buzzwords and keywords that people are fundraising on, I think these are all things that are going to take a lot of time, and people have to be a little bit realistic about those timelines. We've talked this whole show long about how slow some of these processes are, and that doesn't change when you start talking about water quality. And honestly, it gets more complicated because fisheries science and management is complicated enough. When you start talking about water quality, it's even more complicated and multifaceted. And people will say, well, it's big ag or it's big sugar or it's this or it's that. Honestly, it can become saltwater versus freshwater, like I mentioned before.
It's exactly right.
Like, who cares about the lake? Let it die. I don't care. I'm a saltwater fisherman. Well, the bass fisherman in Lake O cares about the health of the lake. He wants the water level low. He wants to see more discharges.
And we talk about hunting and fishing on this show, fishing primarily, but you look at the most recent tournament, I was telling you about it, there were 200 boats. Yeah. They were fishing like a 3-acre area, 4-acre. I mean, it looked literally like they were all inside a marina the way they were fishing. Like they're all concentrated because that's the only place there's fish on the lake because of the water levels and the vegetation. And yeah, you can't kill one thing to save another. Like that seems like we're better than that. Seems like we're smarter than that. Lake Okeechobee is one of the most important lakes in the country. Like it is intrinsically important. You could get into water supply levels south of the lake and how that impacts. Yes, does it impact agriculture? Absolutely. But agriculture is one of the first things it impacts. It's not far-fetched to think you could go to Miami and turn your tap on, or Fort Myers and turn your tap on in your kitchen, and salt water comes out. Like, that's the freshwater head to the Biscayne aquifer. Like, you could get really in the weeds on this stuff. So it's not quite as simple as folks like to boil it down sometimes.
Yeah.
It's a really, really complex issue.
Yeah, so it stinks. Discharges are about to happen. It's going to be really frustrating, and we're all hoping and praying it doesn't cause harmful algal blooms. But it's one of those things that there are some positive things that are ongoing to help try to stem the issue. And we all have to be patient. We all have to continue to work it together and not fight with each other.
You look at this whole conversation like something that never gets mentioned is Lake Kissimmee. I'm sure some of our listeners are on his tackle box over there, Lake Kissimmee.
Literally, someone said there needs to be more drawdowns on Kissimmee chain of lakes.
Lake Kissimmee is going to be held high as a reaction to both research on the river restoration and LOSUM, which is something a lot of folks have advocated for. Kissimmee is going to be held high, way high, for the next 6 years.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to begin to impact the plants that are already impacted on that lake, historically from spraying, but then from Irma, which rolled up all the vegetation. You can't grow plants on Kissimmee anymore, so they're trying to do some restoration with bulrush and stuff, but now we're going to hold more water there. And this is where it gets like, your eyes start to glaze over, because like, oh my gosh, well, now he's talking about a different lake than he was a minute ago, and we were just trying to talk about discharges in Fort Myers and St. Lucie, and it's like, you add in there's 5 or 6 agencies in the pot, you add in, one of them's a federal agency, most of them are state. It just gets really complex, and it's a really nuanced conversation. It's way harder than most people make it seem.
Yeah, it's not an easy question. So, long story short, it is unfortunate that these discharges are happening, but there's a lot of positive things in the work, and we all need to continue to try to stay as patient as possible. Overall, to me, even at the federal level, they're starting to talk about a water quality symposium and take a broader look at ecosystem-based fishery management. So there's some definite hard work going on beyond the scenes. These issues didn't happen overnight. And the solutions aren't going to happen overnight either.
You got that right. We all live here. We're all part of the problem.
Amen to that. A lot of people, a lot of concrete causes a lot of problems in our ecosystem, but we're all working together to solve these problems over time. So let's keep on working. Bartow Ford Real Animals Radio will be right back.
Thought you were going to get me in trouble there for a minute.
What was that?
WFLA presents CEOs You Should Know. Listen as top business leaders talk about how they personally connect with the communities they serve and live in. These leaders represent a variety of companies across all industries. Please enjoy this short segment.
Liquid oxygen is the clinically proven, scientifically proven answer for the physical issues of acne and also the emotional issues that you're dealing with as well. We're focusing on our acne system. That's where our brand identity, our brand promise is really focused. We change, a person's life very quickly because the results are so fast. But we have a full line of products that are going to be coming out over the next several months. What we have developed is a foundational science. Oxygen, it's a foundational science, and it's oxygen. So it's perfect for all skin types, all ethnicities. It's oxygen. And so we have a full line of skincare products in all the categories: anti-aging, repair, lotions, serums, all the things that people really, need. And those are going to be rolling out over the next several months.
Hope you enjoyed this short segment of CEOs You Should Know on WFLA as we interview top business leaders on how they personally connect with the communities they serve. Listen soon for another segment of CEOs You Should Know.
I've been telling you guys for years now about how much I truly love my Gills apparel both on and off the water. Well, now you can go to OutdoorNation.com and shop the full Gills gear line along with several other great brands like Real Life, FinTech, and Mad Pelican. All these great brands at an easy one-stop shop for all your outdoor apparel needs. Again, go to OutdoorNation.com, use the code RLA20 and get 20% off site-wide. One-stop shopping for both him and her and 20% off to boot. Great outdoor apparel.
Turn on the brake mics.
21.5 million people, half of them live south of the lake.
Yeah.
Like, okay, we want to restore the flow, send it south, whatever the buzzword is of the day. You can't do that when you've got that many people there in the same way that it happened naturally.
21 million people in the state. 10 million of them live south of Lake Okeechobee.
Yep.
That's crazy.
Yep.
Lake Okeechobee is really far south in the state.
Yeah, and if
more than half our population lives south of it.
If you think most of those people don't, I mean, there's a giant undeveloped area.
Yeah.
Everglades National Park, the EAA, that like there's a lot of place down there that's not developed at all.
Yeah.
I spend more time in that area than anyone, most of these people know.
Yeah.
It's hard, man. It's a hard place. There was years where, I think a couple years ago, we were friends. We were moving water around, trying to pump water so we could hunt ducks.
Yeah.
Dry as a bone. And then all of a sudden, we had more water we knew what to do with. I mean, it's just crazy.
Yeah. Challenging process.
Dylan Hubbard.
Bartow Ford Real Animals, we're back talking fishing, talking all things fishing. Want to make sure we give a shout out to our friends over there at Relentless Perpetual Edge Knives, the first ever self-sharpening knife that sharpens as it cuts. Ultra hard carbide, never rust titanium blade with true grit glass reinforced ABS handle on a knife that is perfectly balanced and comes in 5 great models. Take the work out of filleting and get your Relentless knife today. Go to relentlessknivesusa.com to find out for yourself why this knife is what all the pros are talking about. Now, we talked a little bit about Lake-O. We talked about the MRIP gag numbers. We talked about the right to hunt and fish. And now we're coming up to the end of the show.
We talked sheep's head and hogfish.
We did.
I mean,
we talked about some fishing,
we did
too.
Weather, like... We covered some ground today, brother. We didn't have any callers.
Yeah, so you guys just had to deal with us today. It's pretty crazy. But speaking of weather, we definitely got a little bit of weather coming in today. Going to be a little bit rainy and nautical here this afternoon and into tomorrow. That cold front going to be ripping through the area tomorrow and going to stay a little bit bumpy and adverse through the day Monday. But midweek's looking pretty good. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, especially towards the end. Wednesday, Thursday, you're going to be on the front side of a full moon. We got the full moon coming up, and we've got more weather potentially early in the weekend coming up. So in between these fronts, kind of mid-work week is going to be your hot opportunity to go fishing.
Yeah. Maybe call in.
Maybe call in. Maybe plan a sick day.
Go ahead. I'll give you a pro tip. Monday, tell your boss, man, I don't know. I might be coming down with something going around.
Yeah.
My kids
start
had
laying
it.
the groundwork.
Like, there's no penalty for lying about this stuff. Like, just go ahead and start laying the groundwork.
There's
and
no
then
penalty.
Tuesday, Wednesday is when you want to be, probably Wednesday, right? Like, that's when you
want to start coughing. You want to start laying it on thick.
Yeah, I was running a fever this morning. I don't even know if I should be here.
Yeah.
Any luck, they're going to send you home. You can fish that afternoon. But pro tip, do not post any pictures from this trip.
Yeah,
like, don't
wear sunscreen.
Oh gosh, yeah, you can't go back in with the alligator eyes or the raccoon eyes like after pulling this. But I'm telling you, I've done this a billion times. I'm a trained professional at it. You got to figure out a way out of this.
Unemployable, Travis Thompson. Unemployable. Definitely Thursday looking like a good day. Pre-full moon, a good opportunity to get out there right ahead of the weather. So keep an eye on it. Take advantage of those weather windows. Remember, your weather update was brought to you by our friends over at Reese Windows and Doors. They're Florida's leading window and door company with over 50 years in business. They offer free installation on most windows and doors, and they install in just 6 weeks. They use only in-house installers, no freelance contractors, and their work comes with a double lifetime warranty. Visit reesewindows.com for more info. Now, the right to hunt and fish on the All Florida website. You want to learn more about it. You want to definitely vote yes on the right to hunt and fish. It'll be on the ballot coming up November 5th.
I would like to retract that.
Too.
We can't say vote yes because we both are with nonprofits. So technically, we can't say vote yes.
I can say whatever the heck I want, Travis. This is my show. Wait, why?
It's something to do with lobbying rules or PAC rules or something else. So I get it too, but
you have to follow that rule.
Oh, absolutely. So on the All Florida website, we don't tell you how to vote. It's an informational website. We provide much information as we can around the importance of hunting and fishing, the
so
value of it.
technically, your website can't say vote yes on to, but it can give you all the information.
Correct. allfla.org/right to hunt and fish. So R2FH, right to fish and hunt.
If you go on the Real Animals, Hubbard's Marina, or Captain Dylan Hubbard Facebook pages, we're dropping the links in the chat for you guys as well. So definitely check it out, and definitely want to think about voting yes on that. I'll say it again.
And I'll add something real quick here at
Just
the
because
end.
Travis told me not to.
And I don't know if I'm allowed to say this or not, but we've talked a lot about conservation stuff today and a lot about conservation work today.
Mm-hmm.
Listen, if you're not a member of some of these orgs that we've talked about, from my org, All Florida, to Florida Guides Association, we never talk about the fact that you don't have to be a guide to join FGA. You could be.
You can join as an associate member.
CCA Florida is an incredible organization. There are lots of great groups out there doing lots of really good work. And I'm telling you, Dylan will tell you, I spend more time in these rooms than anybody he knows.
100%.
These are the groups I see over and over again. Like, they're in the room. If you're on the waterfowl side, Ducks Unlimited, Delta Waterfowl, Safari Club, like the hunting side, those are groups that are in those rooms a lot with us. And so it's really important to me. Isaac Walton League in South Florida, Mike Elfenbein, our buddy down there.
Yep.
Like, these are guys that show up over and over and over again. If you're looking to support something, that's a good place to support, do some conservation work.
Amen. Speaking of the Miami Boat Show, we didn't have a real good chance to talk about it, but one cool thing at the Miami Boat Show that I wanted to mention was Yamaha. Did you hear what happened?
No.
Yamaha came out with a sick collaboration. So Yamaha partnered up with Roush, which is awesome.
The race car engine maker.
Yes, they make awesome trucks and Mustangs, but they teamed up with Roush, and then they also teamed up with Regulator Boats, which makes a pretty bad to the bone center console. So you have Yamaha, Roush, and Regulator. Pretty sick, stacked up collab right there. And they came together to release or to show off a hydrogen-powered outboard engine.
Oh, my gosh.
Hydrogen-powered outboard engine. So Regulator built the mold. They have the hydrogen bottles in the boat, and Roush is working on the fuel system, and they're going to be testing that boat this year.
Let me ask you a question. Where does one get hydrogen?
Like, I don't even know what this means.
I don't either. Like, I think.
But it's cool.
Well, I'm the same way. I'm like, wow, that's really cool. And then I'm like, I don't know. I wouldn't know. And is it expensive? Is hydrogen?
I think it comes from water. I think they get it from water.
Wow.
Yeah, right? I don't know. We'll learn more, though. We'll bring it back to you. Also, Contender released a 23 Bay, and it was propped wrong, and it goes 63 miles an hour. 23-foot boat. Wow. Yeah, 23 Contender Bay. Check it out. And we've got more. Check it out on next week's episode of the Real Animals Radio Show every Saturday morning, 6 a.m. to 8 a.m. Check out Captain Travis Thompson, allfla.org. And don't forget to vote yes on Amendment 2, the right to hunt and fish.
I did not say that.
And also, don't forget, if you're too busy to go fishing, you're just too darn busy, get out there and go fishing, y'all. Enjoy your day. Thanks for listening, y'all. Apologies that our call system wasn't working this morning, but hopefully you enjoyed the show regardless.
They're troopers.
Yeah, you made it through. You made it through dealing with us. So thanks for being a part of it. We'll see you next week for another episode. And again, check out the links we dropped into the chat today. Check out the allfla.org website. Learn more and talk to your friends. Tell your friends and think about joining. Appreciate y'all.